Well, welcome. Thanks for being here, DJ. Super excited to learn from you. I'm sure everybody read a little bit of the snippets about DJ. He is amazing, selling over 150 million per year in real estate. Comes with an amazing educational background from an Ivy League school and a construction background. Your family owns a construction company, correct?
Yep. Yeah, exactly.
All right, great. So why don't you just walk us through, like, kind of how, okay, high school ends, and then you are, in this, your family owns this company. What does that look like? Your decision making from that point?
So at that point in my life, I was very, very deep into playing baseball. I was a high school baseball player. I was intending on getting drafted and playing pro ball. So my last, most of my 4 years of high school was dedicated to trying to figure out where I was going to play college ball. I tried out for 2 pro teams, didn't make it because I wasn't 6'4" lefty throwing 94 miles an hour. I was good enough to play D1 baseball, but not good enough to play pro ball. And all the schools I was looking at were in the Mid-Atlantic region, all good D1 schools: University of Virginia, James Madison, University of Richmond. And then Columbia came along and said, "Hey, we'd like you to come play with us." And I didn't think I was an Ivy League caliber student at the time. I had a B+, A- average, but certainly not an Ivy League education. Thankfully, I tested in. They wanted me to come play ball there. I did. And then I blew my arm out between freshman and sophomore year. And that was the end of my baseball career.
Sorry to hear that.
You know what? It was probably the best thing that ever happened in my life, because of hurting myself, I ended up having to totally change what my attention was on. And I decided to go to the beach for the summer, get a job working there, surf, picked up different sports. And I met my wife at the time, but my wife now. At the time we started dating. And so if baseball had continued on its path, I might not have met her, and she's my business partner too. So although you guys may see me or may see the accolades that come from me, I'm like 20% of why this happened. She's the other 80.
That's nice. That's nice. And it's great that she's got your back. She's a great supporter for your team.
For sure. So I went to college. I was the first one in my entire family tree to go to college. Dad and mom owned a construction company together. And the important part about that is that I got to see a home business, a small business in my house every day. I got to see them taking home work every single day and never getting away from it. And also seeing a mom and dad, husband and wife, communicating business and personal. So I think that's a lot of the reason why our team and my wife and I working together works so well, because I had a good role model to work off of with that. But dad never wanted me to work in construction, gave me all the crappy jobs, picking up nails from roofing jobs and stuff, so that I would never want to work in construction. Went to college, graduated from Columbia, and went to work in marketing and advertising. Hated working behind a desk. The accounts I was working on were all pharmaceutical accounts, and I saw all these pharma reps that were whining and dining people, and I was like, that's what I want to go do. So I found my way into working for Pfizer. I started working with them in 2003. I stayed with them until 2016, which is an 8-year overlap with my real estate career, until I finally left them in 2016. And by that point, the business we had was already probably 35 to 45 transactions a year.
I don't know.
So it's odd because I ended up doing real estate very close to what my family's business was. And part of me wishes that I had stayed in the construction business so that I could have rolled my parents' construction business into our real estate business and sort of make it like a design build real estate firm all in one. We still good? Did anybody lose me?
You froze there for a second. All right. Well, I love that your dad gave you the bad jobs. That was so brilliant on his part. That's my favorite part of that story.
Doesn't every parent give their, like, don't do what I'm doing, go find another job, and then all of a sudden you find your way back to exactly what they didn't want you to do?
Exactly. So tell us a little bit about the area that you sell in. I mean, like, is it rural? Is it not rural? Like, I know you're New Jersey, but New Jersey is not like, Miami. Like, people know what Miami is like, right? But where you are in New Jersey, tell us a little bit about that.
So New Jersey is super densely populated. It's called the Garden State. If you fly into Newark Airport, you have no idea why it's called the Garden State, but I promise you, drive 45 minutes in any direction, you'll understand why. It has a ton of horse country, tons of farms. And then the most amazing beaches. I know people in Florida, Hawaii, everybody's got their own favorite, but Jersey does have some beautiful beaches. Actually, one where I am right now at our beach house for the summer. So the easiest way to describe this is if you look at New Jersey, midpoint of the state, over by the ocean, that's where our business is. We service about half of the state. If you were to divide it down the middle, we service the eastern half of the state. But where I am, the claim to fame is probably the beginning of the Jersey Shore, and also the fact that my town that I live in is called Colts Neck,
Yes.
which is Bruce
Hi,
Springsteen's
my name is
town.
Michelle Perkins. I'm with William Pitt Sotheby's, and I have a
Let's see how
client
this
who's very
goes.
important. She's also my daughter, and we saw
Christy,
your
can you mute
listing
that?
for 56 Mountain Road. Yes.
I wanted
All
to
right,
see
all
how
right.
that turned out.
We might learn something good there.
Yeah. So Bruce Springsteen lives around the corner from us. I don't live in a house like Bruce Springsteen or David Bryan, who's the keyboardist for Bon Jovi, but there's a lot of celebrities like Jon Stewart lives in our town as well. People who have been in Jersey for their entire life, but want to live in a town that has a little bit more of an equestrian feel to it. So our town is largely a horse farm town, but it's 15 minutes from the beach.
Wow, that's a really cool location. You get the best of several worlds.
Yeah.
So from a referral standpoint, everybody needs to think east side of New Jersey. And if you really don't know where your people are moving to in New Jersey, just ask DJ and he'll tell you if it's him or somebody else.
Yeah, I mean, our team services a lot of the state. So the eastern half of the state's the more densely populated parts. If you have anything in Jersey, certainly ask us. And if it's not us, we'll find you the right person.
Nice. So I want to just jump right into some of the sales that you have had are incredible. I mean, I've interviewed a lot of really cool people on this Zoom, and I think you might actually have the coolest properties of everybody. I mean, you've got to admit, you've got some pretty cool, like he sent me one, I'm like, dude, that's a hotel. That's not a house.
They're big.
Pretty amazing. Talk a little bit about that, because you've set some incredible records with the highest price sales being 12 million.
Mm-hmm.
Tell us a little bit about that. How did that even happen?
So I've always wanted and sort of built our team with the expectation of it being luxury. I worked in a pharmaceutical career talking to very affluent, very well-educated physicians. So I knew that I had the ability to walk the walk with those individuals. And I built the business 17 years ago, wanting to make sure that we could service that clientele. But also, if you think about my timeline, right, I got licensed in 2008, right as everything was crashing. So as I was learning the business, I was watching these other real estate agents who solely specialized in luxury, and they were getting crushed. The luxury market had tanked in 2009 to 2012. And if they didn't have, the $500,000 to $800,000 buyer that was keeping the lights on, they were out of business. They either had to rebuild their entire database or they had to go out of business. And a lot of them just said, I'm not looking to redo this again. I'm out. So I took the approach of, I want to build a business that could service everybody, but do it in a way that really feels like luxury for everybody. And I think it's paid off over the last 17 years. You're right. We do have a couple big records. So this past 2-year period, we have the 3 highest sales in Middletown, New Jersey, which Middletown's not a super bougie town. It's very much a middle-class town, but there's a river that kind of runs through the town. It's called the Navesink River that leads out to the Atlantic Ocean. And on that river is where all of these blue chip iconic properties are that CEOs and CFOs from Manhattan, of big Fortune 500 companies, have their estates, or they have their places they come down to on the weekend. And those houses, over the course of the last 20 years have sold for anywhere from $1 million up to, I think the top sale was around 4.5 or 5 million. We, in the last 2 years, have a 9.5 million, 11 million, and a $9 million piece of land, all 3 that have sold. So the 3 highest sales in that town ever in history. And there's some pretty cool properties. Some of them are rather large, including one I have as a pocket listing right now that is 38 million. That's about 30,000 square feet, with the biggest residential wine cellar anywhere in the United States.
Wow. Could you host an event there and I'll come?
I've asked him. He's such a private guy. He doesn't really want to do it, but I can tell him. I've already told him, if you let me make one reel and tag Dan the Bourbon Man and a couple other people who are big on Instagram, I'll sell this house off of one Instagram reel. But he's just a very private guy. He's not willing to do that yet. But literally the wine cellar is about a 40 by 60 room. And then around the corner is another 20 by 40 room of all bourbon, 12 feet high, 20 feet wide, and 8 bottles deep. Every bottle you can't find in the store is in this guy's basement.
Wow. Wow. That's so cool. Um, very cool. So how did you get in with people like this?
So my first listing I ever did, the first sale I ever did was $1.8 million. It was a physician that I had worked with. They were buying a beach house, and I was like, wow, every single sale is going to be $2 million. This is super easy. That's not how it went. I don't think I closed another multi-million dollar transaction for 4 or 5 years after that. But our real foray into the upper end, right? So everybody's got a different percentage of their local business that is ultra luxury. For us, we have a lot of houses just because Jersey's a fairly affluent area that our starter houses are up to about $600,000-$700,000. Your move up house is somewhere between $1 million to $2.5 million, and then the real luxury really starts at about $3 million and above. And the top of our price range around here is really about 10 or 11 million. There's not much that sells here in that price range. I wanted to be intentional with how I got into that market and really started to service that market. And the way that I did this about 4 or 5 years ago was based on a book called The Tipping Point from Malcolm Gladwell. If you've read that book, I'm a huge fan of all of his books. But in the book, he has this idea that you can divide everybody that's in your sphere into a variety of different categories. And one of them is a connector. So if you're thinking about doing lead generation or talking to your sphere of influence or trying to gain access to a group of people you want to do business with, the easiest way to do this is to figure out who it is in your database already that's already connected to the people you want to do business with, and then go and bring value to the person who's the connector who already knows, likes, and trusts you. So for me, I had this revelation after reading the book. I was like, I like to dress well. Tailoring is really important to me. My tailor is connected to every affluent person in Monmouth County, all rich guys, and they like connecting people. That's what they do. They actually enjoy people coming into the shop and connecting people so they can do business together. I was like, all I need to do is spend more time with Matt, and Matt will help me grow my business. Not because it was intentional on his part, but just because we're being around each other more often. So I already spent too much money on clothes, but I told myself that year that I was going to go and spend every Friday an hour and a half in the shop. And they're nice enough that they like people to hang out there. They don't expect you to come in and buy something every time, although I think I did. So I absolutely spent more money because I was spending my hour and a half there with them. But I picked up my first $5 million purchase from that. That person's brother ended up buying a $4.5 million house with us. And then that store, as long as I used that ammunition, I was able to sort of roll that into bigger and more continued transactions in the luxury price point. So that kind of got me into, okay, now I've got 2 big sales along this peninsula area. Let me go send out a letter to all of the houses over $4 million in these 2 towns. Hey, I'm not sure if you saw, we sold these 2 properties. If you haven't heard of us, here's our website. We also partnered with a company called, I forget what the company is called at this point because they're no longer in existence, but a vacation club essentially. They're looking to purchase properties in your area that they can then rent out. Here's a QR code to go to our website that explains a little bit more about this whole process. If you're interested, let us know. And that led to the biggest sale I had in my career, which was the one that sold for $9.5 million up to that point. The daughter of the owners of that house had been trolling me on social media for 6 months. I had no idea. She wasn't commenting. She wasn't liking, doing anything. And I got a phone call one day from her father saying, hey, we live at such and such address. We're interested in selling our property. Our daughter has been hounding us to talk to you. And the same day that she asked us to talk to you, a letter showed up in the mail that you had sold these other 2 properties.
Wow.
We'd like for you to
Timing's
come meet with
everything.
us.
Timing's
everything. And I think the multiple approach is what's important to take away from that too, right? You can't just be doing magazines. You can't just be doing social media. It's about people feeling like you're all around them, that they can't avoid you. So I sat down for that listing appointment, and then the owners, who knew every single real estate agent in the county, they were friends with most of them, they were big socialites, decided to give me a shot. I got the listing because of one thing, not because of my social media or any of that. It was because when I walked through the house, I paid attention to all the details throughout the house and knew the grain of the wood. I knew the type of molding that was there, and I was able to talk about what those things are. And I didn't realize that the reason why they were interviewing me was the 2 realtors they were closest with had come through the house and basically told them everything in the house needed to be removed because it was too gold leaf, and there were paintings on the wall, like there were motifs on the wall that just weren't what people were looking for. They basically told them to gray wash the entire house. This is a $15 million mansion that someone spent their entire life collecting the antiques for. And they left there with the feeling that that agent, they didn't like the house. And if they didn't appreciate it, how could they possibly sell the property? And that was my opportunity, I guess, just to take a different approach, which is my honest approach. And they saw the value in that. So it worked out well. Am I frozen? Or is Sandra frozen?
No, she's frozen. You're not. We can hear you.
Okay.
Yes, we can hear you
So the
just
lesson I took, thanks. The lesson I took away from that was know your stuff and be able to accentuate the details of the house, especially in the luxury price point. People want to know that you know all these special things that they chose in their house, even if the buyer's not going to care about it, right? And I tell people all the time that most buyers don't care what brand that chandelier is, or if they're custom cabinetry from Clive Christian. They don't care. They just want to be able to regurgitate that to their friends when they have a house party. They want to be able to make their friends think that they're special. So it's, again, not important that the cabinet's made out of mahogany. It's that they can tell their friends that the cabinets are made out of mahogany. So it does matter. And you've got to be able to accentuate those things. And the sellers want to hear that when you walk through the house. The other lesson I took away from that was, rather than trying to take a property and market it to the masses, you only need one person who matches for that property, and lean into the strength of that property, right? For that home, the best part about it for the right buyer was that it was an uber traditional mansion with gold leaf and a lot of super traditional furniture in it. You just need to go find the 2 or 3 people that exist in the marketplace that are looking for that. Maybe culturally are a good fit for that, stylistically are a good fit for that. And then you'll find your buyer, rather than going to try the 100 people that wanted to look gray and white and aren't going to pay you what it's worth because they want to take everything out of the house.
Right. Love that. So I want to just back up a little bit, back to the tailor, because that's a great story. I love that. You know Seth Levin, right?
I do.
Like, he's kind of the same way. He's a connector, and that's how he got started too, was with one person who was able to connect him. So I love that. I love that it was a tailor that was your person. Like, brilliant, right? That one person connects you with so many people. So let me ask you, are you still seeing that same tailor?
Oh yeah. I mean, I would buy my clothes there even if it wasn't sending me business, but it's been a great business relationship. And I'm sure that I don't get every piece of business that comes out of there, because they're very careful about making sure they connect the right person with the other person. But oddly enough, I have spent less time there since the business has taken off with more luxury clientele. But it's something that I realize every couple of months. I'm like, I really need to get back in there more, because I'm sure there's missed opportunities that are happening there.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, so it's funny because sometimes when we have these conversations right now, it kind of brings you back to, oh yeah, let me make sure that I'm connecting with that person again and again and again. So I kind of hang on this topic for just a little bit, because we have a lot of people on the Zoom that are from different parts of their career, people that are brand new, people that haven't done any luxury, but they're wanting to do luxury. So I like to kind of hang here for a minute just so that they can get the understanding that, when you started with the tailor, you didn't have luxury listings. It wasn't like you were born into them. You weren't raised in that. This was something that you intentionally and purposefully went out, you found the person that could do this and help you with that. So I just like to really, harp on that for a minute, just so that people on here who haven't started that journey yet, that they know that they too can do it, that they've got to find their person like you found your person.
Yeah, I mean, when I've gone out and done breaking into luxury conversations, and that's the same thing that I talk about, which is there's 3 ways to get into luxury business, right? You could be born into it, you could take over someone else's business that's already servicing that clientele, or you could be like the rest of us who don't have any clientele in that market, didn't grow up in that market, didn't get something handed off to you, and go build it. And it's the hardest way to do it, but it's the most sustainable way to do it.
Love it. So you mentioned that you walked through the house and you knew, brands and styles and things like that. How did you get to that point? Because a lot of people on this call probably can't walk through a house and do that. They don't have that experience. So how did you get there?
That's a lot of just my background too, right? Growing up in a construction business and being around techniques and structures and how things were put together. Even though it wasn't what I intended to do, I picked up enough of it through osmosis, I guess, that I was able to understand that. And it helped me in the beginning of my career too, because as I would take out first-time home buyers, I would be pointing out things to them that their inspector would eventually point out, but nobody shows when you're showing a house. So you can learn that stuff. I mean, especially with the ease of the internet right now, go follow NS Builders, go follow Legacy Builders in Tennessee, go follow Risinger Build. Like, you can follow any of these great construction companies across the country that are purely putting out content to educate on new techniques in construction. And then go follow brands too. Like I always say to our agents, when you meet somebody either at a showing or an open house, you have 8 seconds to grab their attention and connect with that person. It has nothing to do with the rest of what you show them in the house. It has to do with those first 8 seconds. If a client gets out of a car and she has the newest Louboutins on, and you can call attention to that model and something about them, they know they have someone who understands them, right? It was the most frustrating thing to me about luxury business and just business in general when I got in, was like, why did that agent get that listing? I know they're not as good as me, but it's because the person who hired them knows, likes, or trusts them. And likely in the luxury space, is because that family lives on the same block. They go to the same country club. They spend time in the same social places. That doesn't make them a good real estate agent, but they know that the person they're hiring understands money enough because they live in that same lifestyle. You roll up in a Honda Civic, you might be the better real estate agent, but you're not portraying the image that that person should trust their money with you. And it's a terrible thing about our world. And it is something you just need to understand at the same time, which is that image matters, especially in the luxury business. The image you put off, the way you speak, how you speak, the cadence to it, all of it matters to those clients for them to feel like they can trust you.
Yep, absolutely. We had a little incident recently that happened in one of our not top luxury properties, but like lower end luxury, where our agent was on his way to a golf thing, and he was dressed very nice, but he was wearing shorts and a golf hat, which is not acceptable in any way, but it was just the circumstances that everything kind of happened, that the agent who was supposed to show it got a flat tire. This guy ended up going to show it. Our seller saw him on the video, on the cameras, and was furious. So absolutely, I completely agree with you about the image. And he looked great, but he didn't look the part.
So one of the first buyer's agents we ever hired didn't stay with us very long because she kept showing up to properties in yoga pants and flip-flops.
Wow.
I gave you 2 tries. After the second try of coaching you to how to be different, if you're not willing to look the part to do the business, just doesn't work.
Yeah, and that's not something that you try and maybe fail at. You either do it or you don't. Like, you know how
it's
to,
something
you know
we've
how to put
learned
clothes
that
on.
yeah, I mean, it's something that we've learned culturally as we're interviewing people to join our team is important to us. We want people who are, their hygiene is exemplary, that they like to dress well. It doesn't have to be dressed expensive. I mean, there's so many ways to dress nicely inexpensively now, but also that there's something about you that when people meet you, that you're magnetic. There's something that stands out that they want to continue having a conversation.
I love that. I love that. So I'm going to go back again. You had mentioned that the daughter of that listing had seen you on social media. So tell us a little bit about that. What were you doing on social media that caught her attention?
I didn't think anything good. I didn't think there was anything worth grabbing people's attention, but I guess about 5 or 6 years ago, we started to make a more intentional push around Instagram and trying to put out educational reels and just content about the local area. And it certainly wasn't high quality, but then I hired, since when we've gone through 5 or 6 iterations of how to do this, we had people on staff, then we went to an outside company, we went back to somebody on staff, we went back to an outside company, but it is an unbelievable amount of time that it takes to do it. It's extremely cost inefficient, time inefficient, but I continue to invest in because I really do believe that if you are not working on this in the next 10 years, you're going to look back and wish you had been, and there's just ground you can't make up. So it's always amazing to me because I can't say that we've ever had, 5 transactions that have come directly from people DMing me and saying, hey, I want to buy or I want to sell a house, but it gets referenced a lot when I'm in conversations with people. So I almost look at it like agents who do magazine advertisements in luxury magazines. How often are you getting somebody to call you and be like, hey, I want to sell my house because I saw you in Industry Magazine? Probably not all that often, but you're doing it for mind share. So if I can do it for mind share purposes, and when they're in the space where someone's talking to them about real estate, or they're in the space themselves to do something in real estate, that they've seen enough of me that hopefully they think to at least make me one of their phone calls.
Right. I agree. I think that it's a great support tool. So it's like if they've got your name for whatever reason, somebody referred you, then they go and check you out, and then it's validating to them what you're doing. But clearly you did something really cool on that reel. You should, check that out.
To figure out which one it was. I mean, that's what you just said about people using it to check you out after they get the referral from somebody is really important, because I also had no idea. I'm 44, so I'm not a millennial. I'm a zennial, I guess, this little snippet of time of those of us who grew up in the 80s and had computers, but we still grew up outside playing in the park. But I've got millennial clients who will read my personal profile. They don't care about the work profile. They don't care about how many houses I've sold. They don't care anything about the accolades. They care more about the fact that I like drinking bourbon and that I play guitar. They want to know you as a human more than they care about what your work accolades are. It's the oddest thing for me to sort of wrap my head around, because their parents' generation didn't work that way.
Yeah, exactly. And I did notice on your website with most of your people, you have that information on there so that people, they can get to know you a little bit more before they make that phone call. If they're checking you out, they can see that you're a baseball coach, that you are, the things that you're passionate about. Same with your wife. So I think that's pretty cool. And it kind of gives you a starting point to kick off the relationship, not just about the house.
Exactly. That whole 8 seconds in the beginning when you meet somebody is about finding some form of commonality, whether it's the Louboutins or it's where they came from, whether it's the movie they saw, something that all of a sudden you can latch on together and then build your relationship on top of that.
I love that. I love that. So tell us a little bit about coaching baseball. Do you do that just for your personal enjoyment? Do you get business out of that? Do you mix the two together, your business and your pleasure there?
Worst idea ever. Ever. If you want to get business in your town, do not coach your children in sports. Don't.
Everybody hates you when you don't put their kid in, right?
I got roped into this because I played baseball in college, that as soon as the people in the sports foundation found out about that, it was like, well, you have to come and help us with the program because you have knowledge and you have to share that with people. And then my son wasn't even old enough to play baseball yet, but I was still helping them. And then as he came into playing t-ball, they handed the entire little league program over to me. And I thought this would be great for the same reasons you said, that like, okay, well, I'm going to meet all these people in the community. I'm going to be connected with people. Because the thing about my business is I started it in 2008. I did not grow up where I started my business. It's an hour and a half away from where I grew up. So I had no connections. And at the same time, I was working for another career that I couldn't tell anyone I was doing either one. So I couldn't tell people in real estate that I worked for pharmaceutical sales. I couldn't tell people in pharma that I worked in real estate. So I was essentially a secret agent for the first 7 to 8 years of my career, which made it really hard to build a business where you need to tell everybody what you do. So I was like, maybe this will be my way to meet more people because I'll be around their kids and I'll learn more about what's happening. And I'm also an extreme introvert, which people don't know about me, but I can turn it on for business. But if you see me at family reunion and I don't have someone talking to me, I'm probably pretending to be on the phone with someone because I'm too uncomfortable to go introduce myself to people.
I'm there with you, DJ. I'm right there with you.
Oh, good. So I'm not the only one.
Nope, not at all.
But it ended up being a terrible thing because I tried to turn this town's little league program into a real little league, and nobody wanted any part of it. They all thought their kid was the next Derek Jeter. They all couldn't understand why they were not playing, and it just imploded. And I walked away from it 5 years into it, I think, and was like, never doing this again. Thankfully, my son kind of burned out, not a good thing, but he burned out of baseball when he was in 7th to 8th grade. He's now a incoming junior in high school, and he picked up golf, and that's awesome. He and I can do that together for the rest of our life. But it did help me meet a lot of people in town. I just probably would suggest you become an assistant coach and never run the entire program.
Don't be the one that everybody yells at. Oh, well,
No, it's a thankless job.
Feedback. Yeah, I hear you. Well, I noticed you do a couple of other pretty cool things too. I think you do, it seems like you do a lot of things to try to create interaction. And it's funny that you saying you're an introvert, but yet you're doing some of these things. Like I see you do happy hours periodically. Is that for past clients, potential clients? Who are you inviting to those?
Yeah, so it kind of stems from the fact that I'm an introvert, which is I would rather call a stranger cold call than actually call my past clients and friends, which is an issue I'm working through. But I have to find ways to put myself in front of people without having a choice to say no. And one of the ways to do that is I enjoy drinking bourbon, although I probably should do it a little bit less. And I know people enjoy gathering at happy hours and at bars and restaurants. So we like supporting our local businesses as well. So we've got a whole bunch of clients of ours that are own restaurants or own bars. And we're like, all right, this just makes sense. Let's go feature those restaurants and bars. We'll go hold our happy hours there. We'll do it for 2 to 2.5 hours once a month. And we'll invite our past clients, anybody that's working with our current clients, and ask them if they would like to bring a friend that they can introduce us to. So it's a way for us to build our business. It's a way for our existing clientele to get to meet our other agents on our team. And it's a way for me to get in front of my sphere of influence and past clients as well. Part of the reason for it also is that I have been a big percentage of the production for most of the business's existence. And a lot of our past clients, as they come back through and do repeat deals with us again, I am not the person servicing it. And handing that handoff is super important to someone who has worked with you 2 or 3 times, and now they're not going to get to work with you. So the more comfortable I can make them with the other agents on our team, then when they actually are working with that person, it's not such a strange handoff for them.
Right. Love that. And I love that you know this about yourself and you are doing something to combat it, right? Me, I'm like, I don't know that I want to have a happy hour because now I have to talk to so many people, and it gets tiring.
It's exhausting
when you're an introvert. Yeah,
absolutely.
Another thing I saw that you did, which I thought was super cute, which I might have to steal this idea, DJ. I'm sorry.
Go for it.
But the anniversary card contest.
I'm glad you liked it because nobody did it.
No, stop. Really?
It was horrible. We got 3 submissions.
Well, we did we gave out pumpkins one year, and we did a contest for carving, and we got like two submissions too. So I guess
I got the idea from JP Molfetta, who's another great agent up in North Jersey, and he does a scarecrow contest every year. So he drops off all of the materials, the burlap bags and all that stuff to people who are his past clients and asks them to put one up, take a picture of it, tag them on social media, and then they'll pick one. So they're getting huge reach from it because they get like 50 or 60 people to do it. And they're seeing something on it that has his business name on it. So he's doing advertising all around town. But apparently JP's better at it than I am, because we got 3 people who did submissions, and one of them was one of our teammates' moms.
Yeah, the same thing that works there doesn't always work here. And it's so crazy how what works in one industry, one area, one market doesn't work in another market.
Yeah. But I think that's also another point, right? Someone just wrote back, so authentic. Like, I do more stuff that doesn't work than does work, but you just have to be willing to try more things and try to be different and bring different things to the table and be like, all right, I tried it 4 or 5 times. It didn't work. All right, we'll move on and we'll try something different. But one of our pillars, one of the parts of our MVVBP is being on the cutting edge of things, always trying to be on the leading edge and try new things and lead the industry forward rather than just copying what other people are doing or just doing the same boring stuff forever.
Mm-hmm. I like that. I like that a lot. So what are you doing anything in particular that's keeping you? I mean, your business has continued to grow and be strong even when the market was down. Are you doing anything in particular that you'd like to share that you feel has really helped support keeping you where you want to be?
So I think timing has a lot to do with this. Market by us. I mean, I just saw statistics on the news the other day that home prices in certain parts of the country are flat and even down. In our parts of the country, they're up about 12% year over year. So that's been part of the benefit, is that the market in the Northeast has been relatively strong. But at the same time, our market has experienced the same thing that everybody else has, which is a 50% cut in volume and inventory year after year for the last 3 years. We've been very fortunate that last year we grew over the year before. This year we're up, I think, 60% in volume over last year, and about 35% in units over the year before. So not small numbers, especially in a decreasing market. So we're taking a lot of market share the way I look at it. I do truly believe it's more about timing than it is anything else. I think I was hitting my stride in the business, 12, 13, 14 years in, right when COVID was happening. But we made a very intentional shift when COVID happened. I'm just like everybody else. I woke up that morning when we went on quarantine and lockdown, and I was like, okay, guess I got to find a new career. And we were doing 100 transactions a year at that point. And I legitimately thought we were going to lose our business. We just extremely quickly pivoted to no one's going home, no one's staying around in their sweatpants. Everyone's going to be on a call every morning and every afternoon, and you're still going to work all day, and we're going to huddle together to make sure that we're all motivating each other. And I think the fact that we did not lose momentum during that first 2 or 3 months is what propelled us on the back end of it. And then it's just a matter of continuing to reinvest in the things that have worked well for us and try to continue to build wider and wider and wider. So, we used to do those just sold postcards everywhere we'd sell a property. I'd send out 150 to 200 postcards. The worst idea ever, right? Unless it's part of your farm, you're just like, I'm going to market here once, and I'm going to market here once, and it doesn't work. We still don't really farm, but I was very intentional around building off-market inventory over the last 3 or 4 years in the luxury price point. And I think what's going to be the next big thing for us over the next 12 to 24 months is that we have identified that buyers in our market, and I think this is probably buyers everywhere, want one of two things. They want access to inventory that doesn't exist yet, and they want a deal. And in some places like ours, a deal just means I want to be able to actually get my offer accepted, not that I expect to pay under asking price. In other situations, they actually want a deal. They want, negotiate down below, waiving inspection contingencies and appraisal contingencies. If we can solve those two problems, then the client will work with us. And our team's been using buyer broker agreements for about 10 years. The big difference is with the NAR lawsuit at this point is that we are now putting in a fee to work with us and trying to convince people that if we can't get that fee paid for by the listing agent, then we are going to ask you to pay us. It's a really hard ask when you don't have any value to provide other than I'm really good at my job and I've sold a lot of houses. Okay, well, there's a lot of other real estate agents that do. For us, it is if you want access to our off-market, we call it our off-market vault, we only share that with people who work exclusively with us. And that is legitimately a 45 property database that's changing every single day of properties of sellers who are thinking about selling but can't figure out where to go because they don't know where they're going to go. And we start matchmaking people. And that's been a big thing for us too.
That is brilliant.
So we'll do 250 transactions this year on the team, and probably 10 to 15% of them will be done off market completely.
Wow, that's great. So are you having the sellers sign just a commission agreement, or are they signing a full listing agreement with you?
So first step is for the seller who wants to work with us and potentially going to do this, I just go meet with them. I take a look at the house. I give them a realistic idea of what we think it's going to be worth. And that way they know that they don't have a buyer agent telling them what the place is worth, because it's in the best interest of the buyer who's going to pay them less money for it. They get me because I don't represent buyers. And then if our buyer wants the property, they know they have to pay whatever the price the seller and I have spoken about. And we put it in, there's a form through Google Forms. It goes into the database, and our agents have the ability to search that database and look at it at any given time. And the one they have access to is a read only. So they can't see the addresses of the properties. They know the town, they know how many bedrooms, they know the price. But if they're going to take a screenshot and share it, I can't have the property addresses because I don't know if that person's actually signed an EBA with us yet, or a buyer broker agreement. When we meet with those sellers, we don't ask for anything to be signed. Only at the point where we're going to bring people through would I actually get an agreement signed from them, but that might be something we change in the future. We try to just lead with value that, hey, we're going to bring some folks through when we have realistic people who are a good fit for you. And at that point, we expect to get paid, and here's our commission and all of that.
That's great. So like if you go on listing appointments and they're not ready to sign, is that an automatic, like, let's put them in the database and see if we can match them up with somebody?
Yep, exactly. We've worked really hard over the last 2 years to tag every single person in our database with a town, either the town they're looking in or the town they live in, so that when we get one of these properties, either from our golden letters that we do or from these off-market sellers who come to us, or that we identify through circle prospecting, I can then send an email out and just run a tag through our CRM and go, okay, it's Middletown, New Jersey. Let's send an email to everybody who has Middletown as a tag and say, hey, we've got a property off market. It's this number of bedrooms and bathrooms. It's roughly worth this price range. I know you want to tell your friends about something that's not available yet. If you happen to know anybody, please let us know. And we end up finding buyers that we didn't even know were out there.
I love that. Love that. So let's shift a little bit now and let's answer some of these questions. Kristen, can you help us? Can you go back to the beginning and help us with the questions?
I would love to. We have a lot of otters on here, so I actually don't think there's that many questions.
Oh, okay.
What are otters, by the way?
They take
They're
notes
like
for
AI
you.
assistants, and then they provide you with a whole transcript of the meeting after.
Good luck. I talk fast.
It'll come up with some interesting things if it can't
Yeah.
understand what you're saying. It can be quite funny, actually.
All right, DJ. So we have a question from Mark Benson in Naples. He's asking, what's been the greatest challenge you've had in selling a luxury home?
Repeat that for me one more time. I'm sorry.
What's been the greatest challenge you've had in selling a luxury home?
The greatest challenge is usually getting someone to understand that the insurance appraised value of their property is not what the property is actually worth. It is all of the time you sit down with these clients that are in the $8 to $15 million range, and there's not enough comps in our market, right? There's 3 houses that have sold in the last 4 years, somewhere near it, but they're not really comps for each other. So pricing out those houses is very difficult to actually have comps, and it's a little bit more of guesswork and art form. But they immediately go, well, I just actually had Chubb that sent me their replacement value for the house, and they say it's $22 million. I'm like, I'm sure it is, because I know what 2x4s cost right now, and everything's super expensive, but that doesn't necessarily mean that's what it's worth. And trying to talk people through why that number is not the same number of what market value is takes a lot of finesse and takes a lot of practice. And there's a lot about, okay, what is market value, what is appraised value, and what is replacement cost or tax assessed value, and all the differences between those. So getting people realistic with their price of their house is super important. What's worked well for me with that, Mark, is doing something as what we call an office exclusive. Some people might call it a pocket listing first, to use that to test the market, and then put the market out to the public once we've gained some information. So we might have a property. I'll give you one example. The one that we sold for $9.5 million. They decided they wanted to do this like almost around Thanksgiving, and I was like, "It's Jersey, everything brown. Like the pool's not open. This is not the time to sell this beautiful house with a pool and river views. Why don't we do this? Why don't we use it as a pocket listing for the next 5-6 months until the end of April? We'll show it to anybody that we can find, and we'll get some feedback on pricing, and we'll put it up at the top of the price range. You think it's worth 13 million? Let's go for 13 million and see what happens." By the time we've gotten to the end of April and we've taken the photos and we're ready to put it out to the public, we'll have gotten some knowledge from the 3, 4, 5 people we've brought through the house, and you can use that to readjust the price if we need to at that point. And that's worked really well for a couple different properties we've had. That one ended up playing out very differently, where they another almost identical, like similar square footage, right in the same area, came on the market 2 weeks after we put the pocket listing up. And I was like, look, guys, we need to completely abort the plan. If we wait and don't put your property on the market publicly until April, people who go to see that house aren't even going to know yours is for sale. We need to flip it to a public listing, and we need to capture buyers off of that. And thankfully we did that, because they were under the assumption that I had shared with them that the property was really worth between $8 and $10 million. We went on at 13. We got an offer in at $8.5 million. We put the deal together at 9.75, and they were still very happy because they knew that I believed that was really where the value was for it. And they had tried going out at 13, even if it was just for a couple of weeks. They kind of had the expectation that the price was lower than what they thought.
That's great. So the moral to that story is you got to always be paying attention to the market and what's coming on, and what your competition is. Even if you're not ready to go on, you might need to adjust and shift and get it going.
Yeah.
Love that. And that's where your experience really comes into play, right? Your knowledge.
I think that's the hardest part of being a newer agent without a whole lot of track record, to be able to have those conversations and have the seller trust that you know what you're talking about when you don't have a huge list of expensive properties behind your name is a little bit challenging. So I think there's a reason why people who aren't born into the luxury business, it takes you until you're in this career for a while before you build up the book of business to actually have the legacy to do them.
I agree. What else we got? Are members of your team working with a coach?
They're working with Nikki and me, which is
2 coaches. They got 2 coaches.
Yes. So again, I'm very self-aware. I am not a great accountability partner. I hate confrontation, so I will just Skittles and rainbows you all day and nothing will get done. My wife is the opposite of that. She's very black and white, and she'll call people out when they're not doing what they're supposed to be doing. So we kind of share the director of sales role right now, where I do a lot of the education. She does more of the accountability. But we have a process kind of similar to the way the place model works, where once you're over a certain number of transactions, we will allow you to invest in a showing agent, and then we'll get you excuse me, an assistant to help you write contracts and do some of the paperwork. And then at a certain point, we'll actually pay for MAPS coaching, executive coaching based upon production. So rather than investing in that upfront, people have to show us they can actually bring business in before we'll co-invest in that with them.
Smart, very smart. All right, what else have we
The
got
next
here?
question says, will you talk a little bit about what circle prospecting looks like for you?
That came
And
from
that's
Paige
Paige's
Martin.
question. Just to be clear, that's Paige's question.
I will pay special attention because it's Paige Martin. Circle prospecting for us looks probably like what it looks like for everybody else, which is we have Cold Realty Resource. We invest in that. Our agents go in whenever they have a buyer, like somebody sits down for a buyer consultation with us and says, I'm looking for this property. I can't find it on the market. They go out and show them whatever we can find, and we can't find other properties for them. We'll go and use Cold Realty Resource to search neighborhoods, and we'll just literally go out there and make phone calls to 500-600 people until we can connect with a couple of them. We'll go door knock as well. Some of our agents, we have a template letter that they can send out, but it's similar to what we do relating to golden letters too. So we send out 5,000 letters a month starting this past January to one town at a time, anywhere between $450,000 and up. So top end of the range is open-ended, that have lived in those houses for a minimum of 4 years. And it's been shocking. So we never did anything like this before. We send out 5,000 a month. The typical 1% callback rate on direct mail would give us about 50 phone calls. And I figured if, out of those 50 phone calls, if 2 of those, maybe 5 of those people did a listing appointment with me and one of those listed, it would pay off. We're at 2% callback rate on those. So I'm getting nearly 100 phone calls off of 5,000 letters that come in, that go out, excuse me. It's been a great lead source for future business, 1 year out, 2 years out, and then also some short term. So there are some people who you just land on. They're traveling into town. It's maybe 2 months after you sent the letter, and they're the executor of an estate, and they're looking through their mail and they're like, wow, I actually have to sell this property as an estate sale. And here you go, there's an agent in front of me. So big investment. We partner with our title company to do that and share the cost of it, but definitely seems to be paying off and is a way for us to take market share in the shifting market.
Love that.
Paige, by the way, those letters that we send out to the luxury community, which is sort of like farming, sort of like circles prospecting, I'm happy to share our template with everybody if they want to just use that. It's nothing, our golden letter is very simple. But I do think the important part when you're sending letters out for customers is to be as specific as you possibly can. Whenever I get these golden letter phone calls back from people, they're like, I've gotten a whole bunch of these things in the past, but there was something different about yours because you talked about the client. So when we write these letters, we give granular information. Maybe not names, but like where they're locating, where they're relocating from, exactly what they're looking for in a house, how old their kids are, what school district they're looking to be a part of. Because when you're getting that specific with it, they know this isn't a solicitation for a listing.
Mm-hmm. They believe your story then.
Yeah. And then the golden letters are a little bit different from the, I guess not. All of our circle prospecting letters are sent out on letterhead and in our letterhead envelopes. We do black letters because our company colors are black, white, and fuchsia. We do black letters with white writing on them. So like white handwriting, and we do handwrite every single envelope that goes out so that people know it's actually coming from someone. Our open rate, I think, is higher because of that. And then on the golden letters, we send out on a white piece of paper, but it's a fuchsia envelope. You can't miss it.
I love that. It's awesome. All right, what else we got, Kristen?
What were the name of the builders on social media that you mentioned from Darnell?
Yes, I was trying to remember them and type them in, but I'm not going to remember them in the moment. So what I'll do is I'll send that out back to Sandra if she wants to send an email out afterwards with any of my follow-ups of the accounts I think were worth following on social media.
I have a
And
question.
Karen, go ahead, Julia.
Live person talking. You were talking about the videos and the reels. How many do you do just like a video weekly? I'm really starting to try to get into that. I'm one person that grew up with no money. Never luxury has been really, and I've really started getting a flow. I live in an area, it's 1.4 million average, and I'm farming. I'm sending a postcard monthly. I'm a solo agent. So the reels, I literally handed it, my photographer does them, and I hand it to my daughter to add the music because I don't know how to do it. And I'm like, I need a lot more help than what I have. I'm going crazy.
So Karen Carr, Karin, last name Carr, Carr, used to be a KW agent, is now with Real Brokerage, I think. She has a whole separate business called YouTube for Realtors. Go follow her, go join her program. Even if you're not doing YouTube, you'll learn just gear that you can buy and simple processes using people from Fiverr who can, like, freelance editors and help you out with this stuff. I will tell you that this year, there's going to be a big change to what gets promoted through Instagram and TikTok that is better if you're not highly produced. So the more organic you filming yourself will actually probably respond better than the stuff that's overproduced because people are just over it at this point.
Okay. No, thank you. I've heard of her too.
Yeah, definitely worth checking that out. For me, again, we do a lot of highly produced stuff, but we're trying to drop maybe one piece of content every other day. But you did bring up something else that I didn't talk about yet, which is Reels have been important for us in gaining luxury business too. So something that we do differently, every agent at a listing appointment is going to say they're going to use social media, but like if you have 400 followers, who's watching that video, who's looking at that post? So we've done a lot to try to build our audience on there. I have 116,000 followers on Instagram, but about 90% of them are real estate agents in the tri-state area. That's actually a bigger bonus than the people following me being non-real estate agents, because it allows me to show that I have a really big reach to tri-state area realtors, that when I put something on, they may have the buyer for it that isn't actually looking here, and they might be able to see the property. So what we do for these big properties, anything over 3 million, we call a cinematic reel. What we're basically doing is we're trying to create 2 60-second reels that look like trailers for movies. And we try to highlight the property. And then we also pick trending audio on Instagram and set the video to the trending audio with the expectation that the audio might grab followers purely because that audio is about to go trending. And it's worked really well for us. So we did a couple of them, this one property that looks like the house from Yellowstone. We did another one with Bruce Springsteen because it was a farm in our town right around the corner from Springsteen. So if you go on our social media, and I'll share that with Sandra as well, you'll see some of those cinematic reels. Even if we don't bring the buyer from that, sellers want to know you're doing something different, and that has been enough to separate us from the pack.
No, that's great.
And how did you learn how to do all this?
Trial and error. And look, there was a guy on our staff who was videoing and editing them. Now I have my photography and videography company do it, and it's a product they don't do for anybody else. I was just like, hey, this is what I'm looking to do. Can you do this for me? And they're like, sure, we'll do it. You just got to add the music to it after the fact. So it's a little bit more work on my part, but it's worth it for solidifying the client or potentially bringing the buyer for it, because some of them do get shared and shared and shared to the person who eventually is going to buy it, or to the realtor who has the buyer who's going to buy the property.
Nice.
Awesome.
All right.
What was the name of the author of The Tipping Point? I think you said the name of the book was?
Malcolm Gladwell.
So there you go, Galena, Malcolm Gladwell. Angelica says, please repeat some of the construction companies. Oh, we already asked that. He will remember that and send that out later. What marketing effort has the highest ROR for you?
So the highest ROI is definitely spending time with my tailor. If I go spend $4,000 at the tailor shop and I pick up a $5 million buyer at a 2% commission, yeah, that's a lot of money to make on going and spending $4,000 at the tailor that I really wanted to spend anyway. So
Plus you get
And you look good. You look good.
yeah, I like it. Laura said, plus you're getting free clothes. If you look at it that way, you really are free. Like, they're paying me to wear their clothes.
I love it. Love it.
Okay. Amber Cruz says, I recently sold a gorgeous luxury home for 2.1 million. What kind of marketing would you recommend to try to find more sellers?
Letters, a very specific letter about the sale of that property. And if you have more than one of those that is sold, even if it's years apart, put those in the letter. Again, I'll share these templates that we have with Sandra so she can share them back to you guys, but being as specific as you can helps. I can't tell you how many times as a result of that letter, I got brought into listing appointments where they were like, we don't know who you are. Why don't we know who you are? And I was like, because I don't hang out at a lot of the social parties. I don't go to these philanthropy events. I'm not like the other real estate agents that are doing that. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but because I'm coaching baseball and closing business. And that's what I spend my time doing.
Love it.
I have another question on farming. Do you find postcards, do you get more back if you do a more personalized postcard or a mailer letter?
So traditional farming, I don't know that I did it long enough or we just weren't successful with it, but we mailed out to 3 different communities for about 3 years and basically got 1 listing appointment out of it. What we were doing was every 3 weeks, it was either a postcard or a letter. So once a quarter, they would get a infographic of all the sales in their development, price per square foot, highest sale, lowest sale, all the information in a really cool infographic that we created once a quarter. And then all the rest of them were postcards that we would send out every 3 weeks. And then we do phone calls probably every 6 months to the database or to the area. We didn't really get anything out of it. But again, I cut it short in order to do the golden letter campaign. So if I had continued to invest in that, maybe we would. It's hard also because we were doing this over the last 3 years when inventory was just decreasing and decreasing and decreasing. So if I have to ask, if you really want to ask about farming, I think the person running this phone call is the one you should talk to. Sandra is the queen at that.
Thanks, DJ.
When
I'm coming
when
to
I
your
met
area, by the
Sandra,
way. Julia, I'm coming to do a training for you guys.
And she just froze.
Sandra, I want to put a plug in for the
The date later
Keller
this month.
Williams
I'll be in Tampa.
Luxury Symposium in Coronado Island at the Hotel del Coronado in October. There's still registration and rooms available.
Yep, absolutely.
So
Sandra,
DJ,
you were cutting
question.
out. Can you just
What?
repeat the date that you're going to be in Tampa this month?
I don't remember off the top of my head. I think is it the
Oh.
26th or I think it's the
Oh.
26th.
The regional event is the 16th.
That's a different one. That's a different
okay.
luxury event. I'll be
Okay.
at that one.
Sorry.
And then
I
I'll be
can't
in
keep track. You have so much going on.
Yeah, I'll be in Tampa. I think it's the 26th, but I'll get that information over to you, Julia, as well.
Oh, please, please.
All right, we're getting to the end here. So DJ, I think we might have 1 or 2 more questions.
DJ, I've got a question too. So other than your golden letter and your tailor, what is your other best way of getting business?
that's a great question.
How
I
about
would say that
referrals. Referrals, DJ?
mainly past client referrals and mainly past clients. I mean, if you look at our business, about 85% of it is repeat and referral business, and referral is a very small portion of it, meaning like in from other agents. Most of our referral business comes from past clients who've done business with us. So I guess the best way to explain that is doing a good enough job the first time that people wanted to refer us, and then also just continuing to stay in contact with people through all the different ways we do that, from parties to email to social media, phone calls, which we probably don't do enough. Like everybody, we could do more of them. Sending out cards every year, physical cards for their home anniversary, sending out physical cards for their birthdays, which is all automated through a system. So yeah, I think it's just their traditional methods. I don't think there's anything really clever there, but just going above and beyond in the transaction the first time that they're like, I will be your real estate agent forever.
I guess the other thing is, how did you make yourself finally make the calls that you didn't want to make to your past clients?
It's still hard for me, but my last MAPS coach, Bridget Stewart, said to me, do you think that your clients are better off working with you or working with somebody else? And I said, of course me. And she goes, well, then you owe them the phone call, because otherwise they're going to do business with somebody else. Yeah. She knew. My mom's Italian. She knew exactly how to get to me.
Very good. Thank you.
Yeah.
All right, guys, I want to respect everybody's time. Thank you all so much for being here. And DJ, amazing. I actually took a whole bunch of notes here, like I actually did. And I will be implementing some of those things, and I'll be calling you for a little more direction on some things as well. So thank you so much for being here. I think you're a wealth of knowledge, and I hope you get a few referrals from all these people.
Thanks. Maria had one last
much,
question. She
thanks
said about
everybody
networking
for
with other
joining
agents
us.
around the country. I think it's about offer to teach classes around the country, offer to be on people's podcasts. And then when you're at Mega Camp and Family Reunion, as uncomfortable as it is for you, if like it is for me, you got to go and just meet people. You got to just go out and introduce yourself. Don't hang out with your market center when you go to Family Reunion. That's the best advice I can give you.
Hey, DJ, if you and I were able to connect, everybody else can do it.
Yes. If these two introverts can meet people, you can too.
That's our new slogan. I love it. All right, guys, I'm going to let you all go. Thank you so much. Bye.